Joining us now is Scott Wheeler from The Athletic. We had you on the podcast to talk about the draft earlier, but things might have changed now that we're here at the Combine with all the hustle and bustle. For you, have your rankings changed much? I know with teams, they don't really get affected much by this, but what about yours?
Yeah, you learn things. It's nice. The update, I think the big update was the one on Miroshnichenko's health. Ivan Miroshnichenko is probably the wild card of the first round. He was obviously diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma at the beginning of 2022. By all accounts, he has now completed his treatment in Germany and is returning to Russia to begin training and getting back at it. So that's a big deal. That's a huge positive for a player, and teams need to know that information before they take that kind of a selection on him. Miroshnichenko was going to be a top 10 pick in this draft, and that's not likely in the cards for him any longer, but I still think there's a chance he's drafted in the first round, and considering the health and the uncertainty around his health, that's a big deal. So just that, little things like that come out over the course of this week as we learn more about these kids can help to refine your list, if you will. But no huge takeaways. The work for myself personally and for the 32 NHL clubs that are here is primarily finished. So now it's just about sort of getting to know the kids a little bit better and going about your business that way.
The Devils have the second overall pick currently. Some of these top guys are really showing off their personalities. What stuck out to you about maybe the top 4 or 5 guys?
Well, certainly, I thought Uri was a bit of a star yesterday during his presser, and we'll see him again later today. But the personalities, that's what this is about. Shane has been through this a lot over the last couple of years. He's media trained. There's a little bit more polish with him than some of these other kids. But even Shane, I think, has made a concerted effort really in the last couple of months to get himself out there. We're hearing stories about him playing the guitar and picking up hobbies and those little details that begin to sort of eke out about these kids. And then it becomes not just about the hockey, and it becomes about a little bit more than that. So Uri, I mean, the confidence just oozes out of him in a way that it maybe doesn't for some of these other kids. He's very sure of himself, and he stands tall and broad and big, and that's part of it. That's part of the aura of Uri Slafkovsky. So that stands out to me. Logan, it's difficult. He's been through the National Development Program. Adam Nightingale and his staff have sort of beat into those guys the sort of team first mentality. And I think all of the kids at the program, it can be harder to pull out of them a little bit because of that. They're just so focused on the team and USA Hockey and that sort of piece of their lives. So it can be a little bit more difficult with those guys. But those 3 in particular, I mean, that's the consensus 3 that has developed for most NHL clubs. I think you're going to see in some order those 3 are going to be the first 3 picks off the board. And there's a lot to be excited about for all 3 of those kids. So you can't really go wrong with any of them.
But I want to throw you a wild card. So we talked a lot about the forwards. What about the top 2 defensemen still kind of jockeying for position amongst teams?
Yeah, very different players. David Jiricek is this sort of big, powerful, hard-shooting rear guard that every team wants. He plays a very physical style, at least a more physical style than Simon Nemec does. He plays the game hard. There's a little bit more of a sort of attacking, confident nature to his game. He wants to impose himself, not just offensively, but defensively. Whereas Simon, it's all about the subtleties. It's all about that sort of calculating, smooth, polished game that he plays. And that's a very difficult game to play. But I think teams typically do covet the Jiricek style player a little bit more than the Nemec, but the game's changing, and I think the game is going in the direction of a Simon Nemec, and he for me is the slightly better prospect. But again, those are 2 guys. I think you're going to see them if the top 3 go the way that I expect it will. Those are guys that are quickly going to be gone, if not immediately after one another at 4 or 5. You're not going to see them linger much longer than 6, 7, 8. So two legitimate potential top 4, maybe even first pairing guys, and very different styles. So I think the teams that draft them, it'll be telling of how they see the modern defensemen going, because Jiricek and Nemec don't actually look or play a lot alike.
So one last question, put on your Tom Fitzgerald hat. Who are the Devils picking?
I think Slafkovsky makes the most stylistic sense just because the other 2 are centers. They've already, I'm sure, feel very comfortable with Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes down the middle. That doesn't mean you don't draft a Logan Cooley or a Shane Wright, but it just feels like the big winger that can complement and play off of those guys makes a lot of sense for them. And I think Slafkovsky is a natural fit there. So I like Slafkovsky in that range. I think I would maybe be a little partial. If it were just sort of a best player available conversation, I would probably be partial to both Shane Wright and Logan Cooley. But Slafkovsky belongs in the top 5, top 4 picks in this draft, and I don't think it's a reach to take him at 2. So I just think he makes the most sense in terms of where they're at, where their needs are, and the stylistic fit that he would potentially look like alongside someone like a Jack Hughes long term or like a Nico Hischier long term.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.